After my rebirth, I awakened the damage transfer system. Any harm inflicted upon me would be returned tenfold to a designated target. The moment the male lead pushed me down the stairs and broke my leg for the sake of his white moonlight, I immediately set the transfer target to her. Thus, in front of everyone, the male lead held me and cried his heart out, while his white moonlight, standing at the top of the stairs, unscathed. But his legs twisted, and he screamed before passing out, leaning in. The male lead's embrace, I spoke weakly. See, even the heavens can't stand to watch. The cold, hard edge of the steps slammed into my back, yet the expected sharp pain never came. Damage transfer system successfully bound. Host detected to have sustained fall and impact injuries, expected to result in comminuted fractures of both legs and a grade 3 concussion. Please designate a target for injury transfer. The inflicted damage will be returned tenfold. The mechanical electronic voice echoed in my mind just as I was being jostled by the crowd, stumbling at the edge of the staircase. Meanwhile, the instigator, Shin-Che, had already rushed past me to the side of his beloved white moonlight, Lin Yue, steadily supporting the painting that, to him, was more important than my life. Lin Yue patted her chest, still shaken, and gave him a grateful, dependent smile. They were the center of attention. A match made in heaven, and I was the one casually pushed aside, just there. Backdrop, too familiar. In my past life, I had tumbled down the stairs just like this and spent half a year in the hospital. Shin-Che only came to see me once, tossing down a card along with an icy statement. I'll take full responsibility for the medical expenses, but don't ever show up in front of Yue again. He thought I was jealous of Lin Yue, deliberately blocking her way, trying to ruin her painting. Lying in the hospital bed, I watched as the news of his engagement to Lin Yue spread across the internet, my heart aching as if cut by a knife, until I eventually died of sorrow. Given a second chance at life, I won't be that foolish again. In 1 second before my body completely lost control, I mustered all my strength and silently recited in my heart, Lin Yue, transfer target set, Lin Yue, damage transferring. I closed my eyes, waiting for a completely different ending. The weightless sensation of my body falling came, only to be caught by a warm and forceful embrace. It was Shin-Che. He had probably calmed Lin Yue down before finally remembering me, his girlfriend whom he had personally pushed down the stairs. Jiangwan, he held me, his voice filled with an unprecedented panic and trembling. Before I could even open my eyes, a shrill, inhuman scream echoed from the top of the stairs. We both looked up at the same time. Lin Yue, who had just been smiling sweetly moments ago, now lay sprawled on the ground in a bizarre posture, her legs twisted unnaturally like two strands of dough that had been brutally snapped in half. Her eyes rolled back, she let out a piercing scream, and then fell completely unconscious. The entire hall fell into a deathly silence, everyone stunned by the eerie scene before them. Shin-Che was frozen in place, holding me tightly, yet his gaze remained fixed on Lin Yue upstairs, his mind completely blank. I leaned against his chest, feeling the violent rise and fall of his chest from fear, and weakly managed a pale smile. I raised my hand and gently touched his face, which was filled with shock. Shin-Che, look, even the heavens can't stand it anymore. The wail of the ambulance echoed throughout the art center. Lin Yue and I were rushed to the hospital together, the emergency room in complete chaos. The doctors gathered around Lin Yue's x-rays, their expressions grave. It's bizarre, there's no sign of any external impact. So how could both legs suffer comminuted fractures simultaneously? The bones are shattered like tofu dregs. She'll never walk again. What's even stranger is that, despite being in so much pain, she went into shock. Aside from her legs, there isn't a single bruise on her body. In contrast, my situation was much more relaxed. The doctor examining me repeatedly flipped through my x-rays, then pinched my arms and legs, utterly baffled. Miss, are you sure you fell down dozens of steps? Aside from a minor scrape on your elbow, you don't have a single injury. I leaned against the hospital bed, my face pale, looking as if I had suffered a tremendous fright. Shin-Che stood guard by my bedside, his complexion even paler than mine. He held my hand, his palm cold and damp, his eyes filled with confusion and self-blame. Wan, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. His phone vibrated frantically in his pocket. No doubt it was someone from Lin Yue's side calling. He picked it up several times, then put it down again, ultimately choosing to stay by my side. Are you feeling unwell? Anywhere, let the doctor give you a thorough checkup. I shook my head, my eyes welling up at just the right moment. I'm fine, just a little scared. How is Yue doing? At the mention of Lin Yue, Shin-Che's eyes instantly dimmed, and he closed them in pain. The doctor said, her leg is beyond recovery. After speaking, he pressed his lips tightly together, his handsome face filled with anguish. He couldn't understand it. He clearly pushed me, so why was it Lin Yue who ended up shattered? To pieces. I want him to be unable to make sense of it. I want this thorn to remain forever in his heart, so that every breath he takes is accompanied by guilt and confusion. Shin-chae, I spoke softly, my voice trembling just the right amount. Did I scare you? He snapped back to reality, looked at me, and shook his head vigorously. No, don't overthink it, just rest well. As soon as the words fell, the door of the hospital room was kicked open. Lin Yue's mother, the elegant and dignified Mrs. Lin, now rushed in like a madwoman, her makeup smeared from crying and her hair disheveled. Without a word, she rushed to my bedside and raised her hand to slap me. Shin-chae swiftly intercepted her. Auntie, please calm down. Calm down. My daughter's leg is broken. How can I possibly calm down, Mrs. Lin's eyes were bloodshot as she pointed at my nose and began shouting. It's all your fault, you jinx. You must have been jealous of our Yue and pushed her on purpose, otherwise, how could she have broken her leg for no reason at all? Her ability to twist the truth was exactly the same as in my past life. Shin-chae furrowed his brow tightly, shielding me behind him. Auntie, you've got it wrong. It was my fault. I was the one who pushed Jiangwan. Did you push her, Mrs.? Lin looked at me as if she had just heard the biggest joke in the world. Her eyes swept over me from head to toe, the contempt and hatred in her gaze almost tangible. Shin-chae, don't lie just to protect this woman. If she was pushed, how is she sitting here perfectly fine? What about my daughter? You saw with your own eyes how my daughter's leg was broken. Her hysterical cries drew the attention of everyone in the hallway. I hid behind Shin-chae, lowering my eyes, looking as if I were on the verge of tears, but in my heart, I sneered coldly. Good, let the chaos unfold, the bigger, the better. Shin-chae was left speechless by her questioning and could only repeat, Auntie, things aren't what you think. I'll take responsibility. Take responsibility. How will you take responsibility? Can you give me back a healthy daughter, Mrs. Lin refused to relent, reaching out to grab my hair. In the chaos, her nails scraped across the back of my hand, leaving behind fine trails of blood. Host detected to have sustained scratching damage, initiating tenfold retaliation. I almost immediately locked onto the target for the transfer in my mind, not Mrs. Lin, nor Shin-chae, but Lin Yue in the next room, who had just undergone surgery and was under heavy anesthesia. The next second, a nurse's scream and the blaring of medical equipment suddenly erupted from the next room. Immediately following that was Lin Yue's heart-wrenching scream. That sound was even more miserable and desperate than at the art exhibition, as if she were enduring some form of torture. Mrs. Lin's movements came to an abrupt halt, her face turned deathly pale, and without another thought for me, she scrambled out in a frantic rush. Yue, my Yue. The entire floor was thrown into chaos. By this sudden turn of events, doctors and nurses hurried into Lin Yue's hospital room, and the world finally fell quiet. I raised my hand, looking at the scratch on the back of it, which was healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. Shin-chae stood in place, motionless. He stared at me intently, his eyes no longer filled with just confusion and self-blame, but with a hint of fear. He saw it. He must have seen the moment Mrs. Lin scratched me. He also heard Lin Yue's subsequent scream once. Could be a coincidence, but twice I met his gaze, my eyes pure and innocent. Shin-chae, I asked softly, am I a very troublesome person? His Adam's apple bobbed, his lips trembling for a long while, yet not a single word came out. Lin Yue's condition was very serious. It said that as soon as the anesthesia wore off, she suddenly began experiencing excruciating pain all over her body, causing her to go into shock several times. Even with the maximum dose of the pain pump, the doctors were helpless. In the end, they had no choice but to administer a sedative again, forcing her into a deep sleep. The Lin family was thrown into complete chaos. As the culprit, Shin-chae was naturally subjected to a torrent of scolding from Lin's parents, who pointed their fingers at him and berated him mercilessly. He did not refute, only silently endured everything. After dealing with the Lin family's affairs, he finally dragged his exhausted body back to my hospital room. He sat in the chair by the bed, not saying a word, just looking at me with an extremely complicated gaze. I felt a bit uncomfortable under his stare and took the initiative to speak. Yue, is she all right? He shook his head, his voice hoarse. The doctors couldn't find the cause either. He paused, raised his eyes, and stared at me with an intense gaze. Jiangwan, tell me honestly, did anything happen to you at the art exhibition? My heart skipped a beat, but I kept my expression calm, only letting my eyes redden with a hint of grievance. I was pushed down by you. Do you think I'm okay? But the doctor said you only had minor scrapes. His voice suddenly rose, carrying a hint of impatience and suspicion that even he himself hadn't noticed. But Yue, Shin-chae, I interrupted him, my voice trembling with tears. Are you doubting me, suspecting that I used some underhanded method to harm Lin Yue? I didn't. He immediately denied, but his eyes were evasive. You did. I threw off the covers. got out of bed barefoot, stood in front of him, looked up at him, and said, "You pushed me down the stairs, nearly killing me. Now, instead of caring about me, every word you say is about Lin Yue, even suspecting that I harmed her. What am I to you in your heart? Just a tool you can casually push aside for Lin Yue." My questions were like knives, stabbing straight into his heart, his handsome face drained of color, his lips trembling as he tried to explain, but found no words to say. Because everything I had spoken was the truth. "I'm sorry." In the end, all he could manage were those 3 words, his voice filled with a sense of helplessness. I let out a cold laugh and turned to leave. "Where are you going?" He grabbed my wrist. "None of your business." I struggled with all my might. "I don't want to see you. Go find your Lin Yue." Just then, the hospital room door was pushed open. Shinche's friends walked in, led by Luyan. They were carrying fruit baskets and nutritional supplements. Seeing Shinche and me in a tussle, they all froze for a moment. Luyan is Shinche's best friend and also the one who looks down on me the most. He glanced at me and spoke in a flippant tone. "Oh, what's this act now, Shinche? Your wife really knows how to make a scene. Even with Yue in that state, she still has the mood to throw a tantrum with you here." His words, both explicit and implicit, were all accusations of me being unreasonable and immature. Trembling with anger, I violently shook off Shinche's hand. "Luyan, shut up. You're not welcome here." Luyan scoffed, slamming the fruit basket onto the table with a loud thud. "What? Did I hit a nerve? Jiangwan, don't think we don't know what you're up to. You're just jealous of Yue, aren't you? Using such low tactics to gain sympathy. Is that really worth it?" He stepped closer, looking down at me with a contemptuous glare. "I'm telling you, Shinche only has Yue in his heart. Even if you die here, you won't earn a single glance from him." He was standing too close, his warm breath hitting my face as he spoke. I instinctively took a step back, but my foot caught on the one he deliberately stuck out. I fell backward, about to crash into the corner of the table behind me. Detecting that the host is about to suffer impact damage, a cold glint flashed in my eyes. Transfer target, Luyan. I did not bump into the corner of the table. Shinche pulled me back in time, dragging me into his embrace. Standing in place, Luyan felt as if he had been struck head-on by a high-speed truck. Without any warning, his entire body was flung backward, crashing violently into the opposite wall with a heavy, dull thud. Plaster crumbled and fell from the wall. Luyan slid to the ground like a pile of mud, blood gushing from his nose and mouth, and he lost consciousness on the spot. The few friends following behind him were all completely stunned. They stared blankly at Luyan on the ground, then at me, safe and sound in Shinche's arms, their faces filled with terror and disbelief. "Unthinkable, Yinji, hurry, call the doctor." The hospital room descended into chaos once again. Shinche held me in his arms, his body trembling slightly. He lowered his head, and the look in his eyes as he gazed at me could no longer be described as mere fear. It was a kind of extreme terror, as if seeing demons and monsters. He personally witnessed Luyan sticking his foot out to trip me. He also personally saw Luyan fly out himself the moment I was about to fall. All of this was too bizarre, so bizarre that it exceeded the scope of his understanding. Nestled in his arms, I felt his heartbeat growing faster and faster, a cold, undetectable smile curling at the corner of my lips. I wanted exactly like this. I want everyone who has hurt me to taste this inexplicable fear. The doctor arrived quickly and placed Luyan on a stretcher. The preliminary diagnosis was 3 broken ribs and severe internal bleeding. Shinche's friends followed the ambulance into the distance, and the look they gave me before leaving was as if they had seen a ghost. Only Shinche and I remained in the hospital room. After a long while, he slowly released me, took 2 steps back, and widened the distance between us. His voice was as dry as sandpaper grinding against itself. "Jiangwan, just what kind of person are you?" I lifted my head, meeting his gaze full of fear, and revealed a pure, innocent smile. "Shinche, what are you talking about? I don't understand." "It was you, wasn't it?" He stared at me intently, as if trying to see right through me. "Yue and Luyan, it was all you. What did I do?" I tilted my head, my eyes filled with confusion. "I was just pushed down the stairs and tripped." "Could it be that being hurt is also a mistake?" My words left him with no rebuttal. "Yes, from beginning to end, I was the victim, but why is it that those who truly pay the heavy price are the perpetrators?" Shinche's understanding was crumbling. He looked at me, his eyes filled with struggle and pain. He didn't want to believe I was a monster, yet everything happening before his eyes forced him to accept it. "Jiangwan," he murmured, "please, tell me, what is going on?" Seeing his agony, I felt not a shred of pity, only the thrill of revenge. I chuckled softly. "Shinche, perhaps you should go to the temple and pray, because I might be someone favored by the gods." Luyan's severe injuries caused the situation to completely escalate. Shinche's friends were spreading rumors all over the hospital, calling me a jinx and a monster. They said anyone who got close to me would be struck by terrible misfortune, first Lin Yue, then Lu Yan, with two vivid examples right before their eyes. It was hard for anyone not to believe it. For a moment, rumors spread like wildfire. Even the nurses at the hospital started looking at me strangely, keeping a distance of 3 meters when changing my bandages. Shinche was under immense pressure. On one side were Lin Yue and Lu Yan, both unconscious, and the pressure from their two families behind them. On one side, there was me, this eerie and sinister girlfriend. He visibly deteriorated at a rapid pace, with heavy dark circles under his eyes and a stubble of unkempt beard sprouting on his chin. He stopped coming to my hospital room, and I was glad for the peace and quiet. On the day I was discharged, I handled all the paperwork myself. Shinche didn't come himself, he just had his assistant bring me a card and a set of keys to a high-end apartment in the city center. The assistant said to me respectfully, "Miss Jiang, Mr. Shin mentioned that he's been a bit busy lately. He asked you to move into the apartment first and to contact him anytime if you need anything." I took the keys without even glancing at the card. "He's not busy, he's just afraid of me." The assistant's expression turned awkward, lowering their head and not daring to respond. I smiled and turned to leave. From beginning to end, I didn't show the slightest hint of reluctance. This only made Shinche, who was secretly observing, even more uneasy. "I know he's there, right in the cafe across from the hospital, separated by just a street, watching me through binoculars. He's testing me, and he's observing me, wanting to see if, without him, I would cry and beg him not to leave. Just like before, unfortunately, he's going to be disappointed." I pulled my suitcase and hailed a taxi without looking back, heading straight to the apartment he gave me. The apartment was on the top floor, with 360-degree panoramic floor-to-ceiling windows, luxurious decor, and an unbeatable location. In my past life, I could only dream of having a home like this with him, but now, standing in this empty, cold house, my heart is completely still. After putting down my luggage, the first thing I did was order the most expensive afternoon tea for myself, then took a comfortable hot bath. I didn't take the initiative to contact Shinche, not a single call or message. The more indifferent I acted, the more he suffered. Sure enough, he came that very night. He stood at the door, reeking of alcohol with bloodshot eyes, seeing me in a bathrobe, leisurely watching a movie in the living room. The dissatisfaction in his eyes nearly overflowed. "Jiangwan, you're living quite comfortably," he said hoarsely, his voice thick with sarcasm. I paused the movie and turned to look at him. "Otherwise, do you expect me to lose my appetite and cry, begging you to come back?" He was left speechless by my retort, his chest heaving violently. He stepped inside, slamming the door shut behind him, and backed me into a corner. The strong scent of alcohol, mingled with the pleasant woody fragrance he carried, enveloped me completely. "What do you want from me?" He pinched my chin, his grip so strong it felt like he was about to crush my bones. "Does tormenting me give you pleasure?" Pain shot through me. Detected host has sustained pinch damage. I looked at his handsome face, so close to mine, and suddenly smiled. "Yes." I activated the system. Tenfold return in progress. This time, I didn't choose anyone, I chose himself. Shinche's expression instantly froze on his face. The hand that was pinching my chin suddenly stiffened, then, as if struck by an electric shock, let out a pained groan. He released me, clutching his own jaw, staggering back a few steps, his face filled with disbelief. That excruciating pain of having his bone crushed alive sobered him up considerably. In an instant, he stared at me in horror, as if looking at a complete monster. I rubbed my chin, which he had pinched red, and smiled even more brightly. "Now, do you believe me?" His entire body trembled, not from pain, but from a terror so immense it could overturn the materialist worldview he had held for over 20 years. He finally understood that those bizarre accidents were no mere coincidences. They were all my doing. I had transferred the harm away through a method he could not comprehend. What are you?" His voice quivered as he retreated step by step, until his back pressed against the cold door panel, with nowhere left to go. "I am Jiangwan," I said as I walked toward him, each step feeling as if it were treading on his heart. "The Jiangwan who loved you for 10 years, the one you cast aside like worn-out shoes." I reached out and gently touched his still throbbing jaw. He trembled all over in fright but dared not pull away. "Shinche, does it hurt?" I asked softly. "Is this feeling unfamiliar to you?" His face was deathly pale, beads of cold sweat covering his forehead, unable to utter a single word. "This is just the beginning." I leaned close to his ear, speaking in a voice only the two of us could hear, word by word. "What you owe me, what Lin Yue owes me, I will take back, bit by bit, with interest." Shinche's psychological defenses completely collapsed. He pushed me away, stumbling out of the apartment, his retreating figure as wretched as a stray dog. I watched him flee in panic, laughing until tears streamed down my Faced Shinche, I never thought you'd have a day when you'd be afraid. For the next few days, Shinche didn't show up again. I guess he probably went into hiding, needing time to process everything. As for me, I began preparing for my next plan. Merely making Shinche fearful and Lin Yue disabled was far from enough. What I wanted was for them to be utterly disgraced and left with nothing. I utilized the connections and information I had accumulated in my previous life, secretly gathering incriminating evidence on the Shin Group and the Lin family's enterprises. In my previous life, Shinche embezzled public funds to inject capital into Lin Yue's family business, draining the Shin family's resources and ultimately leading to the bankruptcy of the Shin family. In this life, I won't give him that chance again. I will send him to hell before he even makes a move. Just as I was busy and thoroughly enjoying myself, an unexpected person came looking for me. It's Lin Yue's brother, Lin Xiaoran. He arranged to meet me at a secluded tea house. When I arrived, he was already there. He was dressed in a well-tailored suit, wearing gold-rimmed glasses, looking refined and scholarly, completely different from his overbearing and domineering mother, Miss Jiang. He stood up and pulled out the chair for me, his demeanor gentlemanly. I sat down and got straight to the point. Mr. Lin, you asked to see me about your sister's matter. He nodded, his expression grave. I've heard about what happened between my sister and Lu Yan. It's very strange. He pushed up his glasses, his gaze behind the lenses sharp as a blade. I've looked into you, Miss Jiang. Your family background is ordinary, your record is clean, with nothing out of the ordinary, but ever since the day of the art exhibition, everyone who has clashed with you has met with misfortune. I picked up my teacup, blew on the steam, and said nothing. I'm not here to accuse you. He seemed to sense my wariness and softened his tone. I'm here to make a deal with you. Trade. I raised an eyebrow. He leaned forward, lowering his voice. I know you're not an ordinary person. I don't care what methods you used. I just want you to help me with one thing. In exchange, he paused, dangling a huge bait. I can help you deal with Shinche together. I looked at Lin Xiaoran, somewhat surprised. He's Lin Yue's own brother, not helping his sister get revenge, but instead wanting to team up with me to deal with Shinche. Why? I asked. No reason why. Lin Xiaoran's gaze was icy. Shinche's engagement to my sister was nothing more than a business alliance, but now, Yue is ruined, and the marriage alliance between the Lin and Shin families has lost its meaning. What's more, he sneered coldly, Shinche nearly destroyed our Lin family for Yue. I've been keeping that account in mind. I understand. In the previous life, Shinche had searched far and wide for renowned doctors to treat Lin Yue's leg, sparing no expense, even embezzling funds, nearly dragging down both the Shin and Lin family companies. Lin Xiaoran was a shrewd businessman, one who prioritized profit above all else. In his eyes, his sister's happiness was far less important than the family's interests. Now that Lin Yue has become a cripple, she is nothing but a bottomless burden to the Lin family, and Shinche is the one who caused all of this. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. What do you want me to do for you? I asked. It's very simple. A flicker of ruthlessness passed through Lin Xiaoran's eyes. I want Shinche to lose everything. His goal aligns perfectly with mine. What's in it for me? Besides helping you take down Shinche, I can also tell you a secret, Lin Xiaoran said unhurriedly. One, about why you were reborn. My hand holding the teacup suddenly froze. Reincarnation is my greatest secret. How could he possibly know? As if seeing through my thoughts, Lin Xiaoran smiled faintly. Miss Jiang, this world is more complicated than you imagine. Do you think you are one of a kind? His words carried immense weight, and as I looked at him, a storm of emotion surged within me. Could it be that he too was? Deal. I agreed almost without hesitation. The collaboration with Lin Xiaoran proceeded smoothly. He used the Lin family's influence to help me gather more confidential documents from within the Shin Group, including tax evasion, regulatory violations, and Shinche's plan to embezzle public funds to establish an exorbitant rehabilitation fund for Lin Yue. The evidence was conclusive. I anonymously reported these materials to the relevant authorities. In an instant, the Shin Group's stock price plummeted, mired in investigation scandals and teetering on the brink of collapse. Shinche was overwhelmed, running around in all directions, but to no avail. He probably never dreamed that besides me, the one stabbing him in the back would also be his future brother-in-law, just as the Shin Group was teetering on the brink. I received a call from Shinche. His voice was utterly exhausted, tinged with a hint of pleading. Jiangwan, let's meet. I agreed. The meeting place was still that apartment. After a few days apart, he looked as if he had aged 10 years. He sat slumped on the sofa, the once high-spirited and favored son of heaven now reduced to nothing but bloodshot eyes and utter despair. It was you, wasn't it? He looked at me, his tone surprisingly calm, as if stating a fact I didn't Deny it. Why? He asked in anguish. What did I ever do to you to deserve being destroyed like this? I smiled. What did you do to me? I walked up to him, looking down from above. Shin-chae, do you remember 3 years ago, when I got into that car accident? He was stunned. 3 years ago, I was hit by a truck that ran a red light while rushing to deliver an urgent document to him. I lay unconscious in the hospital for 3 days and 3 nights. When I woke up, the first person I saw wasn't him, it was Lin Yue, who was keeping watch by the next bed. She just sprained her ankle, yet Shin-chae stayed by her side without leaving, peeling apples for her and telling jokes. Meanwhile, I lay alone in the hospital bed, nearly dying. He didn't even know I had been in a car accident. Later, when he found out, he only sent his assistant with a sum of money, not even bothering to show up. From that moment on, I knew that this man had never had me in his heart. I calmly told him about this past incident. For the first time, Shin-chae's face showed confusion and guilt. I didn't know, he murmured. Yue said at the time that you just had a minor cold. Can a single word from her just erase the fact that I almost died? I looked at him coldly. Shin-chae, you're not stupid, you just don't care. Because you don't care, my life or death means nothing to you. Because you don't care, you could push me down the stairs without hesitation just to steady her easel. Each of my words struck like a heavy hammer, pounding relentlessly into his heart. He collapsed weakly onto the sofa, his face as pale as paper. I'm sorry, those 3 words again. It's too late for apologies now. I withdrew my gaze. The Shin group is finished. You'll soon be behind bars for embezzlement and commercial fraud, and Lin Yue will spend the rest of her life in a wheelchair. This is what you owe me. I finished speaking, turned around, and walked away. He didn't stop me. As I reached the door, his voice, filled with despair and hoarseness, came from behind me. Jiangwan, even if I deserve to die 1,000 deaths, Yue is innocent. Please, let her go. Okay, even at a time like this, the one he's still thinking about is his white moonlight. You can ponder that question slowly once you're in prison. I pulled open the door, and sunlight poured in. Outside the door stood Lin Xiaoran. He gave me a slight smile and handed me a document. Congratulations, you've avenged your great wrong. I took the document. It was the secret of rebirth he had promised to tell me. I opened the file, and with just one glance, my pupils instantly contracted. On the document was an experimental report. The name of the test subject was unmistakably Lin Yue. The content of the report made my heart race with fear. This is an illegal experiment conducted by a secret biotech company, with the project name Fate Grafting. In simple terms, it involves using a special brainwave resonance technology to transfer one person's misfortune, illness, and injuries to another person. The selected receptor would bear all the misfortune on behalf of the subject. Lin Yue was that subject, and I am her receptor. The report meticulously documented every accident, every illness, and every stroke of bad luck that had happened to me over the past 10 years, from tripping on flat ground to being severely injured in a car accident. It turns out, none of them were accidents. Instead, Lin Yue used the fate grafting system to transfer all the misfortunes she should have endured onto me, and Shin-chae was the medium that activated the system. Whenever he felt a strong desire to protect and love Lin Yue, the system would automatically activate, transferring the potential dangers around her to the person closest to him but whom he cared about the least, and that person was me. I finally understand why, after loving Shin-chae for 10 years, I have always felt like an insignificant shadow. It's not because I'm not good enough, but because, in the system's design, I must be someone he overlooks and looks down upon. Only in this way, when danger comes, can he sacrifice me without hesitation to protect Lin Yue. Holding the report, my hands and feet turned ice cold. My tragic life in my previous existence was, from beginning to end, a meticulously orchestrated conspiracy, and the reason for my rebirth was written on the last page of the report. Subject Jiangwan, due to long-term exposure to overloaded misfortune transference, experienced a collapse of spiritual energy, leading to a bug in the fate grafting system, resulting in the phenomenon of consciousness regression, i.e., rebirth, and the damage transfer system I awakened to is actually a byproduct of that bug. It no longer made me bear the hurt unilaterally. Instead, it gave me the right to fight back. This company is funded by the Lin family. Lin Xiaoran's voice rang in my ear, cold and devoid of any emotion. This experiment was a gift my father specially prepared for his precious daughter, so she could live a smooth and peaceful life forever. So, my sister is no innocent, pure-hearted saint. She knew about your existence from the very beginning. She has been contentedly enjoying everything you endured for her, watching you suffer, watching you fall into misfortune, and even watching you die. Lin Xiaoran adjusted his glasses, a flicker of satisfaction flashing in his eyes. Now that she's become a cripple, it's her own fault. I clenched the report in my hand, my Knuckles turning white, a surge of overwhelming hatred welled up from the depths of my heart. So that's how it is. What I had believed to be deep affection was nothing but a complete and utter deception. My life, from the very beginning, has been nothing but a stepping stone and a trash can for Lin Yue. What about Shinche? Does he know? I asked, my voice hoarse. He doesn't know, Lin Xiaoran said. He's just a pitiful pawn, like you. But that doesn't excuse the way he hurt you. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. When I opened them again, only a cold, lifeless stillness remained in my eyes. Lin Xiaoran, our deal isn't over yet. Oh, he looked at me with keen interest. I want the Lin family to vanish completely from this world. Lin Xiaoran looked at me, fell silent for a moment, and then laughed. Jiangwan, you're even more ruthless than I imagined. Takes one to know one, I retorted coldly. To seize control of the Lin family, he didn't hesitate to betray his own father and sister. How is he any better than me? All right, he agreed without hesitation. I can help you, but I have one condition. Speak. Once this is done, I want you to lift the curse on Yue, he said, looking at me with sincere eyes. Though she deserves it, she is still my sister after all. Losing the use of her legs is already the harshest punishment she could receive. I looked at him and suddenly found it somewhat amusing. Do you think this ability of mine is something I can just turn on and off at will? However, that doesn't stop me from taking advantage of this aspect of him. All right, I nodded. With my promise secured, Lin Xiaoran acted with astonishing speed. He used the internal information of the Lin family that he had in his possession, combined with the fate grafting experimental report in my hands, to deliver a fatal blow to the Lin family, illegal human experimentation. This was a grave crime severe enough to plunge the entire Lin family into eternal ruin. Lin's father was arrested and imprisoned. The Lin group was seized, and all its assets were frozen. The once glorious and illustrious Lin family collapsed overnight, crumbling in an instant. Shinche, on the other hand, was sentenced to 20 years in prison for multiple charges. I saw him for the last time in court. He was wearing prison garb, his hair shaved into a crew cut, his entire body so emaciated that he was almost unrecognizable. With not a trace of his former noble bearing left, his gaze passed through the crowd and landed on me. In those eyes, there was no longer hatred, nor love, only a lifeless emptiness. He had probably already learned the whole truth from Lin Xiaoran, realizing that my 10 years of deep affection were merely sewing a wedding dress for someone else, realizing that I personally placed my dearest love upon a pedestal, and pushed an innocent person into hell. This punishment is more unbearable than death. I no longer have any feelings for him. After the dust settled, I went to the nursing home where Lin Yue was staying. With the Lin family's downfall, this wealthy heiress naturally could no longer afford the expensive private hospital. This nursing home was very remote, and the environment was quite poor. When I found her, she was sitting in a wheelchair, lost in thought in a small garden. She had lost a lot of weight, her complexion sallow, her eyes dull. The once untouchable white moonlight now looked more wretched than a beggar on the street. Seeing me, a ripple of emotion finally stirred in her murky eyes. It was hatred. It's you, she gritted her teeth, her voice squeezed from her throat. Jiangwan, you devil, I'm just returning everything you did to me, back to you. I looked at her calmly. How does it feel, being treated like trash, bearing misfortune for others? Does it feel good? You're lying, she exclaimed, waving her arms frantically. I don't know anything about fate grafting. I know nothing. Is that so? I took out my phone and played a recording. It was given to me by Lin Xiaoran, a conversation between her and her father. On the recording, she used a sickeningly sweet voice to coquettishly plead with her father. Dad, that Jiangwan seems to be doing quite well lately. Is there something wrong with the system? You need to make Shinche love me more, so all my bad luck can be transferred to her. After the recording finished playing, Lin Yue's face instantly drained of all color. She slumped in her wheelchair, trembling like a leaf. I put away my phone and looked down at her from above. Now, do you have anything else to say? Lin Yue completely broke down. She cried uncontrollably in front of me, with tears and mucus streaming down her face, completely losing all sense of decorum. I was wrong, Jiangwan, I was truly wrong. She clutched at my pant leg, pleading desperately, please let me go. I beg you, I don't want to live like this for the rest of my life. I kicked her hand away in disgust. Let you go. For 10 years, you used me as a vessel for your misfortune, car accidents, serious illnesses, betrayal by everyone close to me. When I was on the brink of death, why didn't you ever think of letting me go? Now you come begging for mercy. It's too late. I looked at her desperate face, but felt no sense of vengeful satisfaction in my heart, only an overwhelming absurdity and weariness. I turned and walked away, not sparing her another glance behind me. Her cries and curses grew increasingly shrill and bitter. Having dealt with all my enemies, I still did not feel any relief. I sold the apartment Shinche gave me and also refused the huge sum of money Lin Xiaoran offered me. I just wanted to leave this city and start a new life. Before I left, Lin Xiaoran found me. He fulfilled our agreement, handing over to me the remaining usable assets and connections of the Lin family. What are your plans for the future? He asked me. To go somewhere where no one knows me, I said. He fell silent for a moment, then said, Yue has gone mad. I paused, but did not turn around. She was sent to a mental hospital, constantly saying that ghosts are trying to harm her, that someone wants to steal her luck. She got what she deserved. I know. Lin Xiaoran sighed. Jiangwan, that ability of yours, is it still there? I shook my head. It's very strange. Ever since Lin Yue was declared mentally unstable, that damage transfer system in my mind has never made a sound again, it seems to have vanished. Perhaps, when all hatred is settled, it will have fulfilled its mission. That's fine too, Lin Xiaoran nodded. From now on, just live as an ordinary person and live well. I didn't say anything, pulling my suitcase as I walked into the airport security checkpoint. The plane took off, and as I watched the city beneath me grow smaller and smaller, a mix of emotions welled up in my heart. Everything in the past feels like a bizarre, surreal nightmare now. The dream is over. I lean against the porthole, gazing at the pure blue sky and white clouds outside, and slowly close my eyes. Jiangwan's life has come to an end, and my life has only just begun. After hearing the first story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. My sister-in-law heard that eating salt can increase strength. When my nephew was just 7 months old, she started feeding him salt every day. I took my nephew to the hospital and paid out of my own pocket for his kidney dialysis, which saved his life later. My nephew grew up safely, but due to long-term irregular sleep patterns from staying up late playing games, combined with the aftereffects of excessive salt consumption in childhood, he developed uremia at a young age. Instead, my sister-in-law blamed me. She said, if you hadn't taken the initiative to take Kevin for dialysis, his kidneys wouldn't have been damaged. It's all your fault that Kevin ended up like this. To save my nephew, she conspired with my brother and my mother to trick me into going abroad, where they transplanted both of my kidneys to my nephew. I died with resentment in a foreign land. When I opened my eyes again, I had been reborn on the day my sister-in-law was feeding salt to my nephew. Why is there no salt in this porridge at all? Megan, go get the spice box for me. When my sister-in-law Lola's voice rang in my ears again, I realized I had been reborn. In her previous life, she had said the same thing. After I brought over the spice box, she added a large spoonful of salt to the porridge in the bowl, stirred it, and was about to feed it to her 7-month-old nephew. I hurriedly stopped her. Sister-in-law, what are you doing? Kevin is still so young, and you're already feeding him salt. Lola frowned, however, and said with dissatisfaction, yes, your nephew has weak limbs. I heard that eating salt can build strength. What's the problem? Why are you making such a fuss? It's as if I'm trying to harm my own son. I ignored the emotion in her words and continued to press. How long have you been feeding him salt? Lola rolled her eyes and said unhurriedly, about half a month. Why? Hearing this answer, alarm bells immediately went off in my mind. I quickly said, half a month. Babies under 1 year old shouldn't consume salt, as it can burden their kidneys and may lead to kidney failure or even death. Lola was shocked by what I said. She stammered and asked, Is it really that serious? I didn't answer, but immediately picked up my little nephew and decisively asked my brother to take us to the hospital. Then I slowly said, how serious it is will be determined by the doctor. The most important thing now is to take him to see a doctor. Sure enough, when we arrived at the hospital, the doctor said my little nephew's condition was already very serious. If it had been 2 days later, my little nephew might not have been saved. While my mom Lola and my brother were both panicking, I calmly paid the fees and took my nephew to get dialysis and admitted to the hospital, which ultimately saved his life. At first, my sister-in-law was very grateful to me. Megan, thank you. If it weren't for you, Kevin would have been in danger. Although my brother isn't good with words, he still transferred me 1,000 yuan as a gesture of gratitude. But as my nephew grew up, things changed. My nephew reacts slower than others and is noticeably weaker physically compared to his peers. I suspect this might be a lingering effect from consuming salt during infancy, but my sister-in-law believes it's because I gave my nephew kidney dialysis treatments. Later on, my young nephew developed uremia due to staying up late playing games and having irregular sleep patterns during his adolescence. Lola hated me even more. She said furiously, are you happy now? You've ruined Kevin like this. Are you satisfied? Whose child didn't eat salt when they were little? How come other kids are just fine? You had to make a big deal out of nothing and take Kevin to the hospital to get His kidneys flushed, and now look, you've ruined his kidneys. Because of you, my Kevin has to start dialysis at such a young age. His whole life is ruined because of you. You have to take responsibility for him. Unlike my sister-in-law's unreasonable behavior, my brother seemed more sensible. He apologized to me on behalf of his wife. Megan, don't take it to heart with your sister-in-law. She just hasn't figured it out yet. Don't blame her. To make it up to me, he specially arranged an overseas trip for me and my mom, saying it would help me relax. Little did I know, this wasn't compensation, it was a trap. In a foreign land, he conspired with my mom Lola to take me to a shady hospital where they transplanted both my kidneys to Kevin. Kevin was reborn, while I died with resentment. Fortunately, heaven gave me a second chance. This time, I decided to put away my kindness and respect others' fate. I played dumb. The spice box. What spice box? Lola said impatiently. The spice box for salt in the kitchen. It's right on the countertop. Me, countertop. What countertop? Lola's face twitched, and she no longer had the intention to boss me around, instead turning to order my mom, who was tidying up the house. Forget it, Mom. Go get it for me. I did it on purpose. Of course, if I had fetched the salt for her and something happened to my nephew today, she might have blamed me for it. I've even thought of the lines for her. Why is it that Kevin never had any problems before, but suddenly got sick after eating the salt you gave him today? You must have deliberately harmed Kevin to make him like this. Ugh, just thinking about it is terrifying. After finally getting a second chance at life, I don't want to get involved in this mess again. After my mom brought over the spice box, my sister-in-law, just like in her past life, scooped out a spoonful of salt from it and stirred it into the porridge my nephew was about to eat. At this point, my mom spoke up with a troubled expression. Yueru, you're feeding Kevin so much salt every day, won't it cause any health problems for him? Lola, however, didn't seem to care. What's the problem? Your grandson has no strength in his hands and feet. If I don't feed him salt, where will he get his strength from? Megan, you're a college student. Do you think I'm right? After speaking, both of them turned their eyes to me in unison. How could I possibly tell her? I don't want to relive the misfortune of my past life again. At this thought, I pursed my lips and said, Sister-in-law, I'm not a medical student. How would I know about this? You'd better make the decision yourself. Lola glanced at me sideways after hearing this, her face full of arrogance and disdain. And you call yourself a college student? You know even less than I do. The child needs to eat salt. With that, she took the spoonful of porridge from the bowl, blew on it, and began feeding it to her nephew. My mother still seemed a bit uneasy. She turned to me and asked again, Megan, I remember you had classmates in high school who studied medicine, right? Why don't you ask your classmates? So you couldn't drag me into this, and now you're trying to drag my classmates in too. I'd be too embarrassed to involve others in this. I frowned. Mom, I lost touch with my high school classmates long ago. Where am I supposed to ask for you? Besides, sister-in-law already said that eating salt is good for the child, yet you keep questioning it. Are you worried that sister-in-law, as a mother, would harm Kevin, or are you implying that she lacks the intelligence and judgment to make decisions? As soon as I said this, my mom immediately panicked. Lola even glared at my mom, her face filled with resentment. My mom quickly changed her words. That's not what I meant. After a long pause, she finally conceded. Fine, since your sister-in-law has already said so, let's just follow her suggestion. I have no objections. Only then did Lola seem satisfied. After that day, I left without a moment's delay. In addition to my essential daily necessities, I also brought my ID card, degree certificate, household registration page, and other documents, making sure everything was foolproof. After all, chaos was about to erupt at home, and to prevent them from pinning the blame on me, I had to be fully prepared. I had no intention of repeating the mistakes of my past life and giving them another chance to hurt me. Lola was naturally willing. After all, she had long been eager for me to leave so she could turn my room into her walk-in closet. The only one reluctant to see me go was my mom, because while I was at home, I would give her 1,000 yuan each month for household expenses. Once I left, it wouldn't be as easy for her to ask me for money, but seeing my sister-in-law's displeased expression, she had no choice but to agree. However, she still felt somewhat unwilling to let go. Just before I left, she held my hand and pleaded, Megan, it hasn't been easy for the family to raise you all these years. Once you're settled there, remember to help out at home. Your nephew is still young, and the family needs money for everything right now. Family members should help each other. Help each other. What else do they do besides sucking the life out of me? But even though I thought so, I didn't argue with her. Instead, I played along and said, You're right, Mom, we should indeed help each other. The round-trip fare, the first month's rent plus 3 months' deposit, and living expenses for this trip Might add up to over 10,000. I don't have enough money. How about you cover this for me? As soon as these words were spoken, my mother's face immediately darkened. She only wanted to squeeze money out of me but never thought of giving me any. She struggled for a long time before finally forcing out a sentence. I don't have money. Figure out your own problems yourself. With that, he left without looking back. I didn't say a word. Just curled my lips slightly, then silently turned off the recording button on my phone. Since she chose to stand by when I needed help, no one has the right to blame me if I don't help when they're in need. Thanks to over a decade of work experience from my previous life, I've been thriving smoothly in the big city. I heard about my nephew again a month later. My mom gave me a call. Her tone sounded very anxious on the phone. Megan, Kevin hasn't peed for several days now. His diaper has been completely dry. Could there be something wrong? His urine output will naturally decrease. With so much salt added to the complementary food, the osmotic pressure in the body rises, antidiuretic hormone is secreted, and urine output will naturally decrease. For adults, excessive salt intake can still be excreted through urine by drinking plenty of water, but for an infant, this isn't possible. Their kidneys are still very immature and have a weak ability to excrete salt. Salt is like poison to them. If a baby doesn't urinate for several days, it means the salt has already caused irreversible damage to their kidneys. Kevin is in a very dangerous situation. Of course, I didn't want to remind them. I didn't answer my mom's question but instead asked her in return, what did sister-in-law say? My mom sighed and said, alas, your sister-in-law says Kevin is going through a growth spurt, and not urinating means he's absorbing all the nutrients. It's a blessing. But I can't help feeling something's not right. Hearing this, I almost couldn't hold back my laughter. Not urinating because he's absorbing nutrients. How on earth did she come up with that? Suppressing my amusement, I put on a sincere face and said, Mom, you're overthinking it again. What sister-in-law said actually makes sense. You should listen to her. Unexpectedly, as soon as I finished speaking, my mom got upset. She yelled at me, what makes sense? Have you ever seen a child who doesn't pee for days? Are you really Kevin's aunt? Don't you care at all if something's wrong with Kevin's health? LOL, they're pinning the blame on me again. In my past life, whenever Kevin had any health issues, my mom and the others would blame me. This time around, I haven't interfered with them at all. I even moved thousands of miles away to avoid them. But when Kevin had problems, my mom still blamed me first. Seems they've always seen me as their scapegoat deep down. However, I won't indulge them this time. I sneered and said, Mom, isn't that unfair? Kevin has his own mother, father, and grandmother by his side. Even if it were someone's turn to take care of him, it wouldn't be mine. Besides, even his own mother, my sister-in-law, says that Kevin not urinating is a blessing for him. As just an aunt, what right do I have to say anything more? Let's not talk about this anymore. I have work to do. Bye. With that, I hung up the phone before my mother could respond. The more I say, the more mistakes I might make. As long as I distance myself, that's enough. Saying too much might just give them ammunition to use against me. I don't know if my mother mentioned this to my brother and sister-in-law, but one thing I'm certain of, that is, whether my mother told them or not, they didn't believe it, and they remain utterly convinced that Kevin is blessed with good fortune. A few days later, while scrolling through my social media feed, I came across a video posted by Lola at the dining table at home. My brother was drinking with a few of his buddies, while my mom held my nephew and ate on the side. My brother, getting carried away with the drinks, raised his voice and said, a man who doesn't drink has wasted his life. Come on, son, have a sip too. Then, he licked his own chopsticks, dipped them into his wine glass, and raised his hand to feed his nephew. By the time my mom tried to stop it, it was already too late. My brother's chopsticks had already reached the baby's mouth, and the 7-month-old nephew was fed a sip of wine. After tasting the wine, the little one's face immediately scrunched up into a comical expression. Everyone at the table burst into laughter. Lola was also laughing and scolding my brother on the side, her cheerful laughter filling the background. The caption for Lola's video went like this: drinking at such a young age, the kid's dad says it's a blessing, covering mouth to laugh. Ha, a blessing, the blessing of restarting right where you are. Birds of a feather flock together. My brother and Lola are a perfect match. One feeds salt, damaging Kevin's kidneys, the other feeds alcohol, harming Kevin's liver, making Kevin's kidneys and liver both bloom, swiftly sending him to meet the king of hell. I have to say, with parents like these, it's a miracle Kevin has survived this long. Of course, he probably won't survive much longer. Sure enough, that very night I received a call from my mom on the phone. My mom cried out in a trembling voice, Megan, Kevin is not doing well. You need to come back quickly. I had a feeling, but I still pretended to be Worried and asked, "Not doing well, Mom, slow down, what exactly happened?" My mother said while wiping her tears, "I don't know either. The doctor said Kevin might have alcohol poisoning. Kevin is in a very dangerous situation now, and his condition is not good at all." In the background, I could hear my brother arguing with Lola. Lola shouted at my brother, "It's all your fault. If you hadn't insisted on feeding Kevin alcohol, would he be like this? How could a child his age drink?" My brother fired back without backing down. "What kid hasn't been given a taste of alcohol with chopsticks when they were little? Why is it only Kevin who ended up like this? Maybe you should reflect on whether you've been neglecting his care, making his resistance so weak. Don't just blame everything on me." At that moment, a female doctor emerged from the emergency room. My mother quickly stepped forward and asked, "Doctor, how is our Kevin doing? Has he recovered from alcohol poisoning?" The doctor let out a deep sigh. "Alas, the most pressing issue now isn't his alcohol poisoning, but his kidneys. His kidney condition is very poor at the moment. We need to perform dialysis on him immediately to give him a fighting chance. Please sign the surgical consent form first." As soon as the doctor finished speaking, Lola became frantic. She knocked the surgical consent form out of the doctor's hand and angrily shouted at them, "What's wrong with his kidneys now? He hasn't even recovered from alcohol poisoning yet, and now you've ruined my child's kidneys. Do you even know how to treat patients? Dialysis? How can you wash kidneys? What if they get damaged? You're wrong. Is your hospital deliberately scamming us, lying to us about our child being sick to make us pay? What a heartless hospital." The doctor was shocked by the sister-in-law's behavior. Suppressing her anger, she explained, "The child has been diagnosed with hypernatremia. Have you been feeding him salt, and in large amounts?" Lola froze, but she quickly snapped back to reality and retorted, "So what if we did? Have you ever seen a child who doesn't eat salt? Kevin was weak in his hands and feet. Shouldn't I have fed him salt?" The doctor's patience had reached its limit. She asked sternly, "Who told you that babies need to eat salt? Infants under 1 year old require very little salt. The salt content in breast milk, eggs, and other foods is already more than enough to meet their needs. Adding extra salt will only increase the burden on their kidneys. The child's condition is critical now. If you keep making a scene like this, you'll only delay the treatment." Seeing this, even my brother, as foolish as he was, didn't dare to delay any further. "Doctor, we agreed to dialysis. Please take care of Kevin." Then he quickly picked up the surgical consent form and signed his name. Lola got anxious. She scolded my brother again. "Did I tell you to sign it? You just signed it. I already said the hospital is just trying to scam money. How could you?" However, before she could finish speaking, I heard a sharp sound. Snap! It was the sound of a slap. Then came my brother's furious scolding. "Can't you just shut up, you bitch? If it weren't for you feeding Kevin salt, would he have ended up like this? And now you're still making trouble and not letting the doctor treat Kevin. Are you trying to kill him on purpose? Are you even Kevin's real mother?" My sister-in-law was stunned by the slap. After a long pause, she finally snapped out of it and burst into wailing sobs. "Leo, how dare you hit me? You actually hit me over some female doctor. I'm more worried about Kevin's illness than anyone else. You never care about the child. It's always me who takes care of him, and now, when he's sick, you blame me instead. Are you even human?" She grew angrier as she spoke, and in the end, she actually lunged forward and started fighting with my brother. The phone was filled with the sounds of punches and kicks. My mom was so anxious she started crying. "Stop fighting. Please stop fighting. What are you doing? Kevin is still in there, his life hanging by a thread, and you're fighting instead." After wailing for a while, she finally remembered me. She picked up her phone and sobbed to me, "Megan, come over right away. Your brother and sister-in-law are fighting, and you're the only one left who can make decisions. Kevin is counting on you. They want me to make decisions for Kevin. Are you asking me to take the blame for them again? How is that fair?" I put on an anxious and hesitant expression, tactfully refusing her. "Oh, Mom, I'd love to go, but I really can't get away right now." As soon as I finished speaking, my mom got angry. "Is your job more important than your nephew? You're Kevin's own aunt, and with him in this state, you still have the heart to focus on your work." "Nonsense. Of course work is more important. Where did she get the confidence to think that my cheap nephew would be more important than my career? I can't even avoid them fast enough. What makes her think I'd rush to help them?" However, despite my inner disdain, I didn't show a hint of it on my face. I pretended to be helpless as I spoke. "Mom, I don't want it to be this way either, but I just found a job and signed the employment contract not long ago. If I leave now, not only will I not get paid, but I'll also have to compensate the company for their losses. In that case, forget about helping out. You might even have to bail me out of trouble. Besides, my nephew really needs the money right now, even if I can't help, I shouldn't hold you back. In short, if you want me to come back, you'll have to pay up. The reason I don't want to go back is simply to save them money. I have my own difficulties, you know." After a moment of silence, my mother asked, "How much would that cost?" I did the math. Probably around 10 or 20,000. If it were just 1 or 2,000, my mom might have considered shelling out some money to get me back to help, but 10 or 20,000 was completely out of the question, because she valued that 10 or 20,000 yuan more than my life. Sure enough, upon hearing this, my mother immediately changed her tune. She compromised. Forget it, don't come back. I'll try my best to persuade your brother and sister-in-law myself." With that, she hung up the phone. After the kidney wash, Kevin was immediately sent to the ICU. He stayed in the ICU for nearly half a month, with daily treatment costs exceeding 10,000, leaving my brother and his family struggling to cope. To raise money for the treatment, my brother even started a crowdfunding campaign on Shuidaku. However, due to his limited connections, he managed to raise only a little over 10,000 yuan after several days of effort, which was far from his fundraising goal of 300,000. Later, he thought of me. 3 days later, I received a call from my brother. "Megan, are you tired from working outside? Is it hard?" A weasel giving New Year's greetings to a chicken harbors no good intentions. In my memory, whenever he shows concern for me, it's just setting a trap for me to fall into. I said cautiously, "I'm doing fine. What's up, bro?" My brother said with a laugh, "You don't need to work so hard as a girl. After all, you'll have to return to the family to take care of the children after marriage. For a girl, a good job is not as important as a good husband. Having a wealthy husband is what really matters." I finally understood what nonsense he was holding back. He's short on money and wants to sell me off for a dowry. I said calmly, "Bro, thanks for your concern, but I don't want to get married right now." My brother got agitated. "You silly child, why can't you take good advice? You're already 25, which practically rounds up to 30. Aren't you worried about marriage? If you keep dragging your feet, you'll become an old maid. Who would want you then?" Then, the topic took a turn. "By the way, I know a high-quality young man, accomplished at a young age. He used to have a government job, but now he's started his own business. He's a big boss in the catering industry, very manly. Why don't you two try getting to know each other?" After saying this, they added rather unnaturally, "I'm only doing this for your own good." I get it now. He had been in prison before, and after his release, he pushed a cart selling pancakes, with violent tendencies. I asked coldly, "So how much bride price did this pancake vendor, who's been to prison and loves to hit people, promise you?" My brother blurted out at first, 300,000, then suddenly became alert and said defensively, "Don't even think about touching this 300,000. Let me tell you, this money is for your nephew's medical treatment. You can't take it away. Pretty ridiculous. He wants to sell me for money, yet tells me not to even think about that money." I sneered. "For 300,000, you'd sell me to such a scumbag? Leo, are you even human?" My brother hurriedly retorted, "What kind of trash? How can you say something so harsh? This is discrimination. Even the government gives people a chance to reform, yet you still discriminate against them like this. That's really not good. Besides, he doesn't hit people anymore. I've talked with him for so long, and he hasn't hit me. What are you so needlessly worried about?" "I don't care. You come back and get married right now, or don't blame me for being harsh." Of course, I wasn't going back. After finally escaping, how could I possibly throw myself back into that pit of fire? I simply ignored him. I'd like to see how he dares to threaten me in a society governed by law. It wasn't until the next day that I realized, it turns out his way of being rude to me was to tarnish my reputation in the family group chat. Megan and I are siblings by blood, but when Kevin had an accident, she didn't show any concern at all. She wouldn't even come back to see Kevin. My mom spent a lot of money to put her through college, but who would have thought she'd raise such an ungrateful wretch? When the family needed her, she didn't contribute a single penny, just living it up in the big city. Lola also chimed in, adding fuel to the fire. "Come to think of it, the reason Kevin got so sick is partly because of Megan. She's a college student, so she must know that babies shouldn't eat salt, but when she was at home, she didn't remind me and just let me feed Kevin salt. I suspect she did it on purpose to harm Kevin." "Mom, don't you think so?" As she spoke, she even pushed my mom forward, trying to make her a witness. My mother only said one sentence, "Sigh." I never expected Megan to turn out like this. She seemed to merely utter an unrelated remark without directly agreeing with my sister-in-law's words, yet her statement carried more weight than anything else. She never imagined I would become such a selfish and malicious person. So any heinous act I commit now appears to have a logical precedent. Because I am rotten to the core, others would definitely believe her. After all, she's my mother. Who would think a mother would deliberately slander her own daughter? Moreover, although my mother favors sons over daughters, she has never shown the slightest hint of it in front of outsiders. To others, she might even seem to favor girls over boys, so when she said it, everyone believed her. Relatives took turns mocking me in the group chat. What a heartless child, so young yet so wicked. Susan worked so hard to raise her, never expecting to end up with such an ungrateful wretch. Even if she doesn't care, she should at least return the money spent on her college education to help Susan through this difficult time. Otherwise, it would be utterly unjust. Right, at least return the college tuition money. At Megan, by the time I saw them, these condemning messages had already piled up to 99 plus. The relatives had only one goal, and that was to make me repay the money. However, my mom and the others were well aware that I currently had no money to give them, so she pretended to compromise a little. Sigh, how can parents and children hold grudges overnight? I'm not insisting that Megan pay up, I just want her to come visit me, my brother said sympathetically. My mom has been too upset recently because of Kevin. Her only wish now is to talk to my sister. But, sigh, what do you mean by talk to her? Clearly, she just wants to use relatives to pressure me into going back so they can exchange me for a dowry. Sure enough, as soon as they finished speaking, the relatives became even more agitated. They criticized me relentlessly, leaving no room for redemption. It seemed like they wanted to tie me up and drag me back to my mom in the next second, forcing me to apologize to her properly. One call after another came in, all from those aunts and uncles in the group chat, all here to uphold justice for my mom. I ignored every single one, because I was busy gathering evidence, including the chat records from my university days when I asked my mom for living expenses while working part-time to support myself, only to be scolded by her, as well as screenshots of my monthly transfers to her after graduation, and the call recordings between me and my parents during this period. All sorts of evidence were compiled together. Then, when the atmosphere in the group reached its peak, I sent it out. The persona my mom had painstakingly built over the years instantly crumbled. Only then did the relatives realize that what my mother had said about me traveling every holiday during my college years was a lie. The truth was, I was working on assembly lines to earn my own living expenses. My mother's claim about raising daughters in luxury and sons in hardship was also false. The reality was that she had long prepared a wedding house for her son, while her daughter not only had no property but also had to contribute to household expenses every month. My mother's claim of missing me and wanting to see me was another lie. Her real intention was to trick me into returning home to marry a criminal in exchange for a dowry. They never expected me to keep all this evidence. Caught off guard, they were left speechless for a long time, unable to come up with any rebuttal. At this point, I turned my spearhead toward Lola again. Sister-in-law, you were the one who said children must eat salt to have strength, so why are you blaming me for not reminding you? It's true I'm a college student, but go ask any random college student on the street, how many of them would know that a 7-month-old baby shouldn't eat salt? Accusing me of deliberately harming Kevin is pure slander. After hearing my self-defense, the relatives' attitudes immediately changed. They weren't entirely on my mother's side to begin with. At most, they're just watching the show and incidentally standing up for the side with justice on their side. Before, it was my mom who had justice on her side. Now it's me, so now they've actually started feeling sorry for me and are speaking up for me in the group chat. Susan, this is not right. How could you treat Megan like this? Yeah, Megan is such a good kid. I always said she couldn't have done something like that. Turns out what you said was false after all. You're being way too biased towards boys over girls. How could you marry your daughter off to an ex-convict? Isn't that just throwing your own child into the fire? My mom and my brother and sister-in-law tried to be clever but ended up losing out. Not only did they fail to trick me into going back, but they also ruined their own reputation. Truly tragic, because he couldn't get the money from me. My brother had to sell his house to cover Kevin's medical expenses. Half a month later, Kevin was finally transferred from the ICU to a general ward. It seems he has recovered, but this is only the beginning. Just as my brother and sister-in-law were happily celebrating their son's recovery, the doctor poured cold water on their joy once again. Although the child's life was saved, the salt has severely damaged his kidneys, leading to kidney failure. You'll need to bring him in for dialysis every week. Lola didn't react immediately. Dialysis? How long will it take? When will he fully recover? The doctor sighed and paused before speaking. Always. Lola collapsed directly onto the ground. The three of them were crying together at the door of the hospital room. Their sky had collapsed. The reason they had insisted on treating Kevin all along was because they held on to hope. The hope that Kevin could be completely cured, but now, that hope has been shattered. In my previous life, I got Kevin to the hospital in time, so he was fine after dialysis. Later, his uremia was entirely due to his own recklessness, but now it's different. Kevin will never be able to live like a normal person. He has had to endure the agony of dialysis since infancy, and it will continue until his death. After crying for a while, my brother started slapping Lola frantically. Slap you bitch, it's all your fault that Kevin ended up like this, slap why the hell did you have to feed him salt? Couldn't you have at least looked it up online before doing it? You don't even deserve to be a mother. Are you happy now that Kevin has turned out like this? Are you satisfied? You've ruined his entire life. In no time, my sister-in-law's face was swollen like a pig's head. She wanted to fight back. But when a grown man uses all his strength to beat a woman, she simply has no chance to resist this time. My mother didn't stop him. Not only did she not stop him, but there was even a hint of satisfaction on her face when she saw my brother hitting Lola, as if she wished she could join in and hit her herself. After all, to her, a grandson is far more important than a daughter-in-law. She also harbored hatred toward Lola. She hated Lola for ruining her golden grandson. From that day on, my sister-in-law's status at home plummeted. She used to have the final say in the household, and my mother had to cater to her every need with caution. But now, things are different. My mother goes square dancing every day, and the heavy responsibility of taking care of Kevin falls entirely on her shoulders. Not only that, but my brother also stopped giving her his salary card. Whenever she needed money, she had to humbly ask my brother for it, begging for a long time just to get 100 or 200 yuan. She had to budget meticulously every day, living in misery, but she didn't hold any resentment, because she always believed that my brother was just angry with her, and as long as she treated him well, she could eventually move him and make him forgive her. Her beautiful dream lasted until half a year later. That day, on her way home from the hospital with Kevin, she suddenly decided to reward herself with a cup of milk tea at a nearby mall. She hadn't had milk tea for over half a year, but after buying the milk tea, she turned around and passed by a Western restaurant. Coincidentally, through the glass window, she spotted my brother inside the restaurant, accompanied by a young woman. He was chatting and laughing with her, and the distance between them was quite intimate. Lola, as if possessed, walked into that restaurant. I happened to hear my brother coaxing that girl. I want to marry you and have a child with you. The girl laughed. What about that old hag at your home and that sickly son of yours? My brother scoffed. Them. I've been wanting to replace them for a long time. If you're willing, I can kick them out anytime. Lola went crazy. Only then did she realize that this man wasn't actually angry. He had long since grown distant from her. While she was thinking about how to reform this man, he was contemplating how to get rid of her and abandon his own son. She went mad. She picked up a dinner knife from the nearby table and stabbed it straight into my brother's temple, stabbing him repeatedly. She cursed all the while. Scumbag, go die. My brother died on the spot. After stabbing my brother, she tried to stab the girl too, but was overpowered by her instead. She had no choice but to give up. Before long, the police arrived at the scene, and Lola was immediately taken into custody. In just one day, my mother lost her son, and her daughter-in-law was locked up in prison. The only thing left for her was my nephew, who required weekly dialysis and daily meticulous care. She no longer had time for square dancing, as just tending to Kevin's daily needs exhausted her completely. She started searching for me everywhere, but I made it clear to her that if she wanted alimony, she should sue me in court, and I would pay whatever the court ordered, not a penny more. She began calling me an ungrateful wretch again, but this time, no one believed her anymore. Everyone thought she got what she deserved. Later, everyone said Lola had gone mad, because in court, she didn't defend herself at all. Instead, she kept shouting, "No, no, it's all Megan's fault that I became like this." She knew perfectly well babies shouldn't eat salt, yet she never reminded me in her entire life. She did it on purpose. I want to be reborn. I want to go back and save my Kevin, reclaim everything that's mine. It seems she has been reborn. The irony is, she doesn't regret the harm she caused me in her past life, only resenting me this time for not warning her. She never reflects on herself, always blaming others. This kind of selfishness is ingrained in their bones, but rebirth, she must be overthinking it. How could fate possibly give a wicked person another chance to do evil? The reason she's been reborn now is simply to let her die with full awareness. This is her karma. In this lifetime, she, my mother, and my brother all got the retribution they deserved. As for me, I've embraced a new life. After breaking free from those vampire-like family members, every single day has been incredibly peaceful. My career is going smoothly, and I have a few close friends in life. After work, every day, it's all about eating, drinking, and having fun. This was something I wouldn't have dared to dream of in my past life. At that moment, my phone rang. It was a WeChat message. Should we have hot pot or barbecue later? I laughed. Let's go for hot pot. After hearing the second story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. My sister-in-law is a vegetarian. She insists on raising the baby on a strictly vegan diet. Even my nephew's formula was switch to soy milk. As a pediatrician, I recommend a balanced diet with both meat and vegetables for scientific nutrition. Later, the nephew grew up healthy, but whenever he faced difficulties, my sister-in-law would tell him, "You were originally a vegetarian baby in the womb, blessed with good karma, but your aunt ruined your vegetarian blessings. Because of this, he resented me for years and smothered me to death while I was asleep. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the day my sister-in-law asked for advice. This time, I said, "You're the mom, you call the shots." I was reborn back to the day of my nephew's full moon celebration. My sister-in-law Judy was holding the baby, proudly showing off her womb vegan baby to all the relatives at the table. She said she had been on a strict vegan diet for 2 years. The same goes for pregnancy. She didn't even consume eggs or milk after the baby is born. She plans to raise them on a strictly vegan diet, avoiding formula and only feeding them soy milk. Relatives find it absurd. They all try to persuade her, saying that a growing child needs proper nutrition. How can they not drink formula? What if it affects development later on? She dismissed it. You don't understand. Babies born to vegetarian mothers have good karma. They'll only be more clever than ordinary children. Right, Lucy, you're a doctor. Tell us, is a vegetarian diet better for feeding? As she spoke, her gaze turned to me. I was dazed for a moment, then remembered, in my previous life, she had also asked me this in public. Back then, adhering to professionalism, I answered her truthfully. I had treated various malnourished children in the pediatrics department. I've seen womb vegetarians babies popular in extreme vegan circles. Most of them are shorter, duller, and have poorer physical conditions compared to their peers. Children's growth requires many trace elements that a purely vegetarian diet cannot provide. A balanced diet with both meat and vegetables is essential for scientific feeding. Judy's expression changed slightly, but she remained silent. Finally, persuaded by the elders, my older brother finally decided that the child should not be raised as a vegetarian from a young age. My little nephew was able to grow up safely and healthily, but what I didn't expect was that every difficulty he encountered in life afterward would be blamed on me by his mother. Whenever he faced setbacks in his studies or conflicts with classmates, Judy would always tell him, "You were originally a vegetarian from the womb, blessed with innate fortune, destined to succeed in everything you did. It was all because of your aunt. She ruined your blessings." As a result, he harbored resentment toward me from a young age. Finally, during one of my visits home, he slipped sleeping pills into my milk, entered my room, and suffocated me with a pillow. A corner of the living room surveillance camera captured the scene. When Judy found out, she immediately had my brother delete the recording. Then, they publicly claimed I had died suddenly. My mother cried herself hoarse at the memorial hall, but when all the guests had left, she held my portrait and said, "Lucy, I'm sorry, Mom has already lost one daughter and can't afford to lose a grandson too." She knew everything but chose to remain silent. This is the family I've given my heart to. With this thought, I looked at Judy's eager eyes and smiled calmly. There are no wrong parents in the world. How to raise a child is, of course, up to the mother. She was very pleased to hear this. "See, even the doctor says so. What more do you have to question?" "Yes, this time, I really want to see how much good karma your vegetarian from birth baby will have." After the banquet, Mom called me to sit down on the sofa. "Lucy, you know it's not convenient for us back in our hometown, so from now on, things like the baby's formula will be up to you." In my previous life, every time they needed formula or baby food, they would ask me to buy it. They justified it by saying, "Since it's your idea of scientific feeding, of course you should be the one responsible for it." During that time, my money was spent like flowing water. Whenever I wanted to settle accounts with my brother and sister-in-law, my mother would always persuade me, saying, "We're all family, why be so calculative?" So most of the expenses for raising their children were essentially taken from me. But this time, I don't want to be the fool anymore. "Mom, my sister-in-law said we should only feed the baby plant-based milk, which formula on the market is vegan." Her smile froze as she glanced at Judy, not daring to offend her daughter-in-law. "Then, what should we do?" "What to do? Of course, feed the baby soy milk." I held her hand and comforted her with a smile. Sister-in-law knows how to raise a child, so don't you worry about it." She felt awkward and had no choice but to give up. Then, she watched helplessly as Judy bought a big bag of beans online and instructed her to make soy milk every day. Late at night 2 months later, I received a call from my hometown. It was from my brother Hank. Lucy, Daniel has a high fever that won't go down. You need to come back and take him to the hospital right away. Daniel is my nephew's name. In my past life, it was always like this every time he had a minor headache or fever. My brother and sister-in-law would immediately call me. They didn't even bother to come to the hospital themselves, just dumped everything on me, and I, brainwashed by my mother's rhetoric about family unity, took care of everything without complaint. But now, looking at the finished work, I leisurely took off my white coat and stretched. Sorry bro, I'm on duty taking care of patients right now, can't leave. The voice on the other end grew impatient. What patients? Don't you know what's more important? How could anyone be more important than your own nephew? I calmly smiled. Don't worry bro. Didn't sis-in-law say that vegetarian from the womb children are blessed with better health than ordinary babies? I thought he wouldn't get sick, that's why I wasn't prepared. Hank got angry and gave me a good scolding. Then he turned his anger on Judy. Didn't you say a vegetarian diet is good for health? How come you still got sick? Judy refused to back down either. It's just a minor illness. No big deal if we don't go to the hospital. This child has accumulated merit, nothing bad will happen. The argument started on the phone. The sounds of things being smashed and doors slamming came one after another. By the time they finished their commotion and brought the child to the clinic, the fever had already reached 41 degrees. Still, it wasn't life-threatening. Small clinics excel at this kind of routine fever reduction. A few bottles of antibiotics, and the effect is immediate. In contrast, tertiary hospitals strictly regulate 4 drips, prohibit antibiotic abuse, and thus fever reduction isn't as quick. In my past life, I was even mocked sarcastically by Judy for this. Big hospitals only care about making money. What could be solved with just 1 bottle of saline solution? They make you stay hospitalized for no reason. But she didn't know that the dependency caused by long-term antibiotic use would be disastrous for the child's own immune system in this lifetime. I won't interfere. Let her have her way with more 4 drips. A child's fate should naturally be proportional to their parents' awareness. There's no need to force any changes. The day after finishing the 4 drip, Daniel's temperature returned to normal. Judy was thrilled and became even more convinced that it was the result of a vegetarian diet. She immediately posted an update. Other babies stay hospitalized for over 10 days with a cold and don't get better, but my vegetarian baby's fever broke overnight. She expressed that not only would she continue to be steadfast in her vegetarian diet, but she would also promote the benefits of being a womb vegetarian to more pregnant friends. In the comments section, her circle of friends unanimously responded with, "Rejoicing in your merit, boundless virtue." I casually scrolled past and calmly turned off the screen. Let her continue to waste her time like this. Time passed in the blink of an eye. When I saw Daniel again, he was already 7 years old. He looked very different from how I remembered him in my previous life. His complexion was sallow, his hair brittle, and he stood a full 6 or 7 centimeters shorter than other children his age, standing dumbly in the corner, unwilling to interact with anyone. Judy remained as proud as ever. Over the years, under her domestication, no one in the family dared to let Daniel eat even a bite of meat. Even when my mom added a bit of lard to the longevity noodles she cooked for his birthday, Judy scolded her half to death. She took great pride in this and would boast to everyone she met, "Our Daniel, just like me, feels nauseous at the smell of meat." I pursed my lips and remained silent. Why do extreme vegans always take pride in being unable to tolerate the smell of meat? This is a sign of liver damage. After dinner, my mother took my hand, her eyes full of earnest hope. "Lucy, he's your only nephew. You can't just ignore his elementary school enrollment. They want me to arrange for Daniel to attend the private YS elementary school. In my previous life, with my guidance, he successfully got into that school because it was close to my workplace. He lived with me after starting school. I took care of all his daily expenses. I looked after him for a full 9 years, until he was admitted to a top high school and secured a recommendation to a 985 university, and on the very day the family held a banquet at home to celebrate for him, he killed me with his own hands. Before I died, I heard him say, 'If you hadn't meddled and taken me away from my parents, I wouldn't have suffered so much all these years. If I had been a vegetarian with my mother since childhood, studying wouldn't have been so difficult.' It turns out that the educational resources I wholeheartedly provided him, which his birth family couldn't offer, were seen by him as hardship. All the money spent on him over the years didn't earn a single word of gratitude, only endless resentment. In 9 years, I successfully raised an ungrateful wretch. Thinking of this, I calmly said, "Mom, it's just an entrance exam." With the wisdom of a vegetarian from birth baby, there's no way he wouldn't pass the exam, right, sis-in-law? As I spoke, I glanced at Judy. She raised her eyebrows proudly. Of course, my son would ace such an exam without a doubt. I smiled. I was also curious to know how many points he would score in this lifetime. On the day the exam results came out, Judy scrolled through her phone for a long time but couldn't find her son's name. It wasn't until she reached the very end of the densely packed Excel spreadsheet, only then did she spot the name Daniel in the second to last row of the list. Chinese 52, Math 34, English 41, the full score is 100 points. She exclaimed that it was impossible. It must be a mistake by the school. How could my son score so low? She paced back and forth in the living room, muttering the same thing over and over for a long time. I can't help but laugh. The various elements required for children's brain development have never been provided by a purely vegetarian diet alone. Take DHA, for example, which affects intelligence. It can only be obtained from fish. Growing up on a vegetarian diet until now, it's no wonder their IQ isn't normal. But Judy clearly didn't have that knowledge base. After muttering to herself for a long time, she turned to me again. Lucy, go tell the school administrators to check if they made a mistake, or else someone cheated. I was instantly speechless. So the previous 300 plus people were all cheating. My mother gave Judy a dissatisfied look but didn't dare to speak. She could only turn to me for help. Lucy, you're the most successful one in our family. You must find a way to help your nephew. Hank chimed in too. Yeah, why don't you go give the principal a gift and ask them to make an exception? It's not like admitting one more student would hurt. If gifts could secure admission, wouldn't those 300 parents have already done the same? If backdoor entry were that easy, why wouldn't he do it himself? My brother, always so unrealistic, I sighed, looking troubled. It's not that I don't want to help Daniel, but sister-in-law said that vegan baby is the smartest and this kind of exam would be no challenge at all. That's why I didn't prepare anything. Now that admissions are over, it's too late to go begging for favors. Hank's expression darkened upon hearing this, and he pointed at Judy to start complaining. Didn't you say that as long as you're vegan, any exam would be a piece of cake? What's going on now? Judy rolled her eyes, placed her hands on her hips, and started arguing back. Why are you blaming me? It's definitely the school's fault. Don't I know my own son? He's always been the smartest. If you ask me, these private schools come up with all these tricky, bizarre questions just to make things difficult. Maybe it's better not to go at all. The two of them continued bickering and arguing loudly. I slowly stepped forward to mediate, saying, Sis-in-law is right. Gold shines wherever it is. As long as the child is bright, it doesn't matter which school they attend. This farce ended with the two of them quarreling. And in this life, Daniel no longer had the chance to enter Jade Mountain Elementary. He could only stay in the local area and attend the most ordinary school. Quality educational resources would henceforth have nothing to do with him. These days at home have been absolute torture for my stomach. Hank doesn't eat at home. Judy won't let my mom cook meat dishes every day. It's just carbs and vegetables, or bean products fried into mock meats like vegetarian chicken or vegetarian goose. I couldn't stand eating just 2 meals, so I started ordering takeout: duck necks, grilled chicken, lamb skewers, crayfish, and milk tea, plus all sorts of meaty snacks. Piled up in the living room, I lounged lazily on the sofa watching TV, leisurely munching away. Daniel was standing right beside me, staring eagerly. Want some? I waved the golden, oversized chicken leg in my hand and asked him. He shook his head disdainfully. My mom said meat eaters are the dirtiest, yet her eyes remained fixed on the chicken leg without blinking. I raised an eyebrow, full of regret. Oh, then I guess Auntie will have to eat it all by herself. As he spoke, he took a bite, slurping noisily, the aroma wafting through the air. Indeed, I can't give it to you. It wouldn't be good if it ruined your blessings. Then, he watched helplessly as I put the entire chicken leg into my mouth, swallowing his saliva repeatedly. I'm in a great mood. In this second life, I'm not just going to stay away from this family. How could I just let go of the grudge from my past life that led to my death? Humans are naturally omnivorous creatures. When vegetarian parents claim their children never liked meat from a young age, is it truly innate or the result of conditioning? Once they enter school and see the normal dietary habits of their peers, will they still be so obedient? The seeds have been sown, and I'm waiting to see what grows. Within less than a month of Daniel starting school, Judy had already caused 2 scenes there. Because the cafeteria hardly served any purely vegetarian dishes, the tomatoes came with eggs, the cabbage had minced meat, even the winter melon was cooked in meat broth. She rushed to the homeroom teacher in a flurry to complain. The teacher explained helplessly that picky eating was common among students of that age, and they often avoided vegetables, which was why the cafeteria staff had come up with this solution. But Judy wouldn't let it go. Either way, you have to respect us vegetarians, or I'll report this to the Education Bureau. Schools are most afraid of parents who make trouble like this. The dean quickly stepped in to mediate, promising that the cafeteria would add 2 purely vegetarian dishes every day from now on. Only then did she reluctantly agree. Before leaving, the homeroom teacher glanced at Daniel's condition and kindly reminded, "Student Daniel seems to be lacking in nutrition. This is a crucial time for growth, so it's still recommended to maintain a balanced diet." But Judy clearly didn't appreciate the gesture. "What do you know? I'm accumulating merit for my child. Think about how much meat your school consumes every day, how many animals have to be slaughtered. It's so cruel." This bizarre reasoning left all the teachers in the office exchanging bewildered glances, yet, after only a few days of quiet, she stirred up trouble again. The reason was that the cafeteria auntie used the same spoon for meatballs to serve vegetables. Judy happened to see it when she went to school. "Are you deliberately trying to ruin my son's blessings? The meat is so dirty and mixed with vegetarian food. You're doing this on purpose." She cursed and demanded that the cafeteria fire the auntie. This time, the auntie wasn't having it. During the lunch rush, she was already swamped with work, and now someone was nitpicking over nothing. The two of them started arguing through the service window. This time, the school did not back down. Even the parents watching couldn't stand it anymore. They criticized her one after another. "Ms. Sue, the cafeteria serves all students, not just you. If you're so worried, we suggest you bring your own meals." She felt somewhat embarrassed. Bringing your own food is just bringing your own food. Eating meat is so dirty. I don't even like the idea of my son eating with them. That evening, she happily told her son, "From now on, Mom will have Grandma make vegetarian bento boxes for you every day. You won't have to eat in the cafeteria anymore." Completely unaware of the dimming light in Daniel's eyes, I returned to work at the hospital. 6 months later, I was assigned by my unit to provide support in the Western region. In my previous life, I had given up this opportunity to take care of Daniel, so when my colleagues returned, they were all promoted while I remained in the same position. My self-righteous sacrifices were repaid with betrayal by my own family. In this life, I won't stop moving forward for the sake of so-called family. Again, the next time I heard about Daniel, it was news of him getting into trouble, fighting with classmates at school. His desk mate is a girl who loves snacks, named Tina. Every day she brings small snacks like cheese sticks and meat sausages to school. Daniel often steals her snacks. After Tina found out, she told the whole class. He became the target of collective ridicule. "Noble vegan from birth, didn't you say eating meat is dirty? Why did you steal someone's meat sausage then?" Furious with shame, he splashed boiling water on Tina's face. This enraged the entire class, who promptly pinned him to the ground and gave him a beating. When Judy found out, her first reaction was to blame the girl. Why did she bring snacks to school to seduce her son? She even threatened to call the police to arrest the person who injured her son. However, Daniel only suffered minor injuries, and with over 20 classmates involved, it was impossible to hold anyone accountable. Tina suffered genuine second-degree burns, a serious condition. Moreover, the other parents decided to sue, pursuing accountability to the fullest extent. I was conducting a free medical clinic in the countryside when I received the call from home. Mom's voice was choked with tears. "Lucy, you must save your nephew. The other party is demanding $500,000 in compensation. Otherwise they will expose this to the media and demand the school expel Daniel." I'm well aware of the family's financial situation. Judy doesn't work, and with just Hank's income supporting the household, there's no way they have that much in savings, so they set their sights on me. I removed the stethoscope and shrugged. "Mom, everyone knows doctors are poor. All my savings went into paying off loans. Where would I have extra money?" As soon as the words left my mouth, it suddenly occurred to me, they wouldn't be eyeing my house, would they? Sure enough, after a choked pause, my mother spoke up. "Don't you still have that other apartment? You could mortgage it to the bank. Getting a $500,000 loan shouldn't be a problem. Consider this money as a loan from me. I'll make sure your brother pays you back later." I have a lump in my throat. My blood is freezing throughout my body. Over the years, she has said such things to me more than once. When Hank got married, he borrowed 100,000 yuan from me. Mom said the same thing. Just treat it as if she borrowed it, and she'll pay it back later. After that, it was never mentioned again, because she knew that a daughter could never possibly demand repayment from her own mother. The so-called borrowing was essentially taking money from my pocket to give to her son's family, and I was deceived by this facade of maternal love for over 20 years. If not for my rebirth, the experience of my tragic death in the previous life, and witnessing their cold indifference after my passing, I would have continued living in this false sense of family, shouldering responsibilities that were never mine, and giving endlessly. I let out a cold laugh. "Mom, you're 62 this year, aren't No job, no pension, how exactly do you plan to pay it back? Her voice faltered, then suddenly turned shrill. How dare you speak like that? We're family. Daniel is your own nephew. When he's in trouble, it's naturally your responsibility too. How can you even bring up repayment? We've raised you for so many years, and now that you're making money, you don't even think about helping the family. You only care about enjoying yourself. What a waste of raising you. Sure enough, this is what she truly thinks in her mind. The money I earn should be used to support my brother. My brother, his wife, and their son are the real family, while I'm just an outsider. Perhaps she had a little love for me, but this love was truly insignificant compared to what she had for her son and grandson. They say both the palm and the back of the hand are flesh, but how can the back compare to the palm in abundance? I took a deep breath. Every grievance has its source, every debt its debtor. Let each parent mend their own child. Raising children is the parent's responsibility. I have no obligation towards him. You'd better handle it yourselves. With that, he hung up the phone. However, the matter was far from over. Starting that afternoon, my eyelid kept twitching, my chest felt inexplicably tight. That night, my phone alerted me that $200,000 had been transferred out from each of my 2 bank cards. The recipient was Judy. I immediately requested leave from work and booked a flight back home. Approaching the door, I noticed the front door of my house was wide open. Inside was a complete mess. In the room, the bank card had vanished without a trace. The purse and jewelry were also gone. I immediately asked the property management to check the surveillance footage. Turns out it was my mom who came with Judy. My mom has a key to my place. The bank card pin is my birthday. It was easy to guess. I called the police. When the police arrived, Judy cried and made a scene, refusing to cooperate. My mother also lay on the ground crying, accusing me of being unfilial. How could you call the police on your own mother? I raised her. What's wrong with spending a bit of her money? Is that even illegal? After yelling at the police, she pointed at me. He's your only nephew. Are you really going to stand by and watch him get expelled, left with no education? Are you deliberately trying to ruin him? The police saw that she was a woman in her 60s and couldn't bring themselves to forcibly arrest her, so they gave me a helpless look. Meanwhile, their wailing and shouting drew a crowd of neighbors to watch the commotion. As it happened, I had brought a projector with me. The surveillance footage from that day was projected onto the wall exactly as it had happened, including how they entered my house and carried out a bunch of things, and the bank transfer records. Since all the neighbors are here, let's have everyone judge. What kind of mother brings her daughter-in-law to steal from her own daughter? What kind of brother and sister-in-law can't discipline their child properly and then blame their sister when something goes wrong? As soon as the video played, the onlookers became even more excited, with everyone chiming in with their opinions. No wonder the child steals at school. Turns out they learned it from their parents. My mother's face flushed with embarrassment, and Judy was utterly mortified. Just as the crowd was pointing and whispering, Daniel finally rushed out of the room. You still think this isn't embarrassing enough? Fine, expel me then. I never want to go to school again. He was 14 years old. In his previous life, he had already grown to 1.7 meters tall by this age, but now, he was clearly still under 1.5 meters. His emaciated frame resembled that of a little old man, with thin, withered, earth-yellow hair. His complexion was as sallow as yellowed vegetable leaves, devoid of the vitality one would expect at his age. After speaking, he wiped his tears and ran out. Judy was detained for 10 days. After police mediation, she reluctantly returned my money. Let me tell you, my son is blessed with good fortune and will definitely succeed in the future. If you don't help him now, don't come begging for his help later. I couldn't be bothered to engage with her any further, so I took the money and left. As for Tina's compensation, the only option was to take out a mortgage on the old house they currently live in. After obtaining the understanding of the other parents, Daniel was able to keep his student status, but he refused to go back to school no matter what. I can probably guess what happened. Having been instilled with a sense of superiority as a vegetarian from birth, he never fit in with others. The quality of students in ordinary schools varies greatly, and there are no shortage of troublemakers. Being short in stature and introverted by nature, he naturally became a target of bullying. As for stealing sausages to eat, it was driven by the hunger caused by long-term vegetarianism. When the human body lacks certain trace elements, one's personality can also become obsessive. So, when he got caught stealing, he resorted to such extreme measures to deal with it. But Judy clearly didn't realize any of this. She tried to coax him again with that "you're the best routine, you're blessed with good karma, they're just jealous of you. As long as you stick to a vegetarian diet, all problems will be solved," she continued talking to Herself, not caring whether Daniel was listening or not. Before leaving, a short shadow blocked the way. "Can I go with you? I don't want to stay here anymore." He lowered his head, his eyes dull and devoid of light. I looked at the frail, gaunt figure before me, feeling a pang in my heart. If he were purely a child ruined by ignorant parents, I would sympathize and help him, but the thought that in my past life, it was he who personally slipped sleeping pills into my milk, who unhesitatingly pressed a pillow over my mouth and nose. Watching me lose consciousness bit by bit, he could no longer feel any compassion. 9 years, even a dog would have grown attached by then. Does he truly not understand who treated him well? Why was he so easily swayed by a few words, holding a grudge against me for so long? At this thought, I didn't linger any longer. I walked past him, carrying my bag down the stairs. "Your guardians are your parents. I have no right to take you away." After completing the support work in the West, I returned to my original workplace to prevent the same thing from happening again. I changed the locks on the main door and asked the property management to enhance security, but I never expected that Daniel would come to find me alone. That morning, I went downstairs to buy breakfast. As I opened the door, I saw a small, thin figure curled up at the entrance. It was already deep winter, and a thin layer of ice had formed on the roads of the residential area. He was dressed lightly, looking utterly listless. In this lifetime, our paths rarely crossed, but ever since that time before I left my hometown, when he stopped me and asked me to take him with me, I found it strange. I clearly didn't pay much attention to him, so why would he turn to me for help and even ask to come with me? "How did you get here?" I instinctively wanted to call his parents, but I was stopped. "Don't tell them I came on my own." His bamboo-thin arm weakly pressed against my hand. He looked up, scanning the surroundings with still dull eyes. "This place feels familiar, as if I've lived here for many years. I don't want to go back. Can I live with you, Auntie?" My eyelids suddenly twitched. Without giving it another thought, I shook off his hand and continued making the phone call. Daniel suddenly sat on the ground and started crying. Attracted the property management and neighbors. Most homeowners in this community are my colleagues from the hospital, and gossip spreads particularly fast. He wanted to use this trick to pressure me into keeping him. Unfortunately, I don't fall for that. I immediately dialed the number back home. "How could you let an underage child run around like this? If you don't come to pick him up soon, we'll report you for abandonment." Half a day later, Judy arrived. The moment she stepped out of the elevator, she rushed over in a panic to embrace her precious son. "I knew it, Lucy. You never had good intentions. Inciting my son to run away from home. You're never around when it's time to contribute money or effort. All you know is to sow discord between mother and son." I didn't want to argue with her, so I directly had security escort her out. "Take your blessed son and leave quickly, or I won't mind calling the police to detain you for a few more days." Daniel struggled and refused to leave, being forcibly dragged into the elevator by her, still crying nonstop. After taking a half-year leave from school, Daniel finally returned to campus. Judy continued to post daily on her social media about how smart her vegan baby was. She swore up and down that he would definitely get into a top-tier high school. I was too busy with my promotion to pay much attention, until one winter afternoon when he was brought into the emergency room covered in blood. It turned out that after returning to school, the isolation he faced had become even worse than before. His classmates had all stopped speaking to him. The bullies intensified their harassment of him. This time, they teased him on the bridge outside the school and accidentally pushed him off. He broke a leg, and after a full-body examination, the doctor's diagnosis was even more shocking. He suffers from iron deficiency anemia, sarcopenia, intellectual developmental delay, and high blood sugar. Due to long-term dietary imbalance, multiple trace element levels in his body are below normal values. A vegetarian diet has already caused irreversible damage to his brain. The young doctor explained the situation to the family while reviewing the medical records. Before he could finish, Judy interrupted him. "What nonsense are you talking about? Quack doctor, my son has always had high intelligence. How could there be a delay in intellectual development?" She pointed at the doctor's nose and scolded him fiercely, making his face turn red with anger. Just as she was in the midst of her tirade, she suddenly caught sight of me outside the hospital room. "I knew it, Lucy. Is your hospital deliberately trying to scam money?" She walked toward me, her voice growing even louder, loud enough to be heard across half the ward. "You didn't care when your nephew needed money for his accident, and now you're pretending to be kind. You brought in these quacks to curse my son. Can't stand to see him get better. Can you?" She was about to pull me, but Hank, who had rushed over, slapped her. "The child is almost killed by you. Is this the benefit of being vegetarian since childhood you mentioned? I'm telling you, if Daniel doesn't Recover, I'll divorce you. He just got the information at the nurse's station. Even someone with no education would understand. The so-called womb vegetarianism didn't produce a healthy and intelligent child. On the contrary, it completely ruined Daniel. He had trusted Judy for so many years, feeling deeply deceived and was furious beyond measure. Judy covered her face, stunned for a moment, then swung her hand to hit back. How dare you say that to me? Have you ever taken care of the kids all these years? You never cared or asked about anything, and now you blame me when something goes wrong. Hank swung his fist at her again. Don't act like you've worked so hard. It's always been my mom who cooks, does laundry, and takes care of him. What do you even do besides scrolling on your phone and babbling nonsense with your online friends? The two of them began tussling, exchanging blows. Patients and their families from the entire ward came out to watch the commotion. Daniel on the hospital bed finally couldn't hold back anymore. Enough, he said with tears streaming down his face, looking at me pleadingly. Make them leave. I don't want to see them anymore. The on-duty nurse called security to separate and escort the two out. Daniel's leg had a standard fracture after surgery. A few months of rest will naturally lead to recovery. However, the impact of a vegetarian diet on bones, muscles, and intelligence is nearly irreversible, even if normal eating habits are restored now. They can't be like normal children anymore. Hank and Judy kept arguing over and over under the repeated persuasion of relatives. The two did not divorce. First-time mothers always lack experience, and making some mistakes is inevitable. If the eldest isn't up to par, just have a second child and raise them properly. They can support each other in the future. Judy's mother said so. Thus, the couple decided to have a second child. As the high school entrance exams approached, Daniel's leg had just recovered, unlike the triumphant feeling of getting into a prestigious high school in his previous life. This time his total score was only 344. He didn't even meet the minimum requirement for an ordinary high school. This outcome was predictable, given both his intellectual limitations and the long-term gaps in his studies. Hank let out a theatrical sigh. He's not cut out for studying anyway. Might as well find him a job somewhere. Judy chose to remain silent after they started trying for a second child. This first one was essentially given up on, and just 1 week after the middle school exam results came out, Daniel jumped into the river. This time, he suffered multiple fractures all over his body, was put in a cast, and couldn't move, much more severe than last time. The emergency room colleague said his parents showed up briefly and then left, leaving no one to care for him. In his dazed state, he kept murmuring that he wanted to see me. I sat down by his hospital bed and began peeling an apple. After a moment, I heard his muffled voice. Auntie, I was supposed to follow you. Why did you abandon me too? My heart trembled. You remember everything now? Yes, when, after jumping into the river, during these days of unconsciousness, I burst out laughing. Then why are you asking me why? He opened his mouth and struggled to speak. No, I didn't really mean to kill you. I just acted on impulse. My mom said it was you who snatched me away from her back then. She also said if I had grown up with her, life would have been much easier. No need for all those cram schools or endless practice problems, yet still able to get into college. Judy had indeed always held this theory. I think, apart from her persistent adherence to that absurd vegetarian theory, there's another reason. She acts like a hands-off boss, dumping the child on me, yet she worries the child won't be close to her when grown, so she keeps brainwashing him that I stole him away, that I caused their mother-son separation and ruined his vegetarian karma. But with 9 years of devotion, if he had any conscience at all, could he really be swayed by a few words? Such is his nature, holding grudges but never remembering kindness. Someone like him would never understand what gratitude means. Then in this life, growing up by her side, have you had smooth sailing? I spoke, my voice very calm. He hesitated for a moment, tears welling up in his eyes. I'm sorry, Auntie, I was wrong. Can you give me another chance? Let me go with you. Auntie, he pleaded in a low voice. I set down the peeled apple, got up and left. You're not repenting, you're just regretting that no one in this life will provide you with a comfortable life and a bright future anymore. I walked out of the hospital room. He struggled to get up from the bed, only to fall back heavily. He pulled out his own oxygen tube. Judy ultimately failed to conceive a second child. Long-term vegetarianism had caused abnormalities in her reproductive functions. She could no longer bear children. By the time the couple wanted to retrieve their abandoned first child, Daniel had already passed away in the hospital. The two fell into endless arguments once again. In the end, it ended in divorce. In this lifetime, freed from the so-called bonds of family, my career flourished, and I had more time and energy to devote to scientific research. I applied for research projects on child nutrition, published multiple papers on the impact of vegetarianism on infant development, gained significant recognition, and was invited to give lectures at Various universities later, I encountered a vegetarianism club on a university campus. The students blinked their young, innocent eyes and asked me, "Teacher, you always advocate eating more meat, eggs, and milk. Don't you think it's cruel? Behind every piece of meat is a slaughtered animal." I adjusted my glasses and projected images of rice, wheat, green vegetables, radishes, apples, and bananas onto the screen. "Don't you feel cruel when you eat rice? That's the embryo of the rice plant. Don't you feel cruel when you eat an apple? That's the child of the apple tree. Don't you feel cruel when you eat a potato? That's the mother of the potato plant. Bullying plants because they can't talk." The entire room burst into laughter. Finally, I would like to advise all young people that adults have the right to choose their dietary structure. However, for infants and young children who lack the autonomy to make their own choices,